Story 1. It started innocently enough. Rain lashed against my attic window, mimicking the frantic tapping of my fingers on the keyboard. The aroma of instant ramen, my usual late-night fuel, filled the cramped space. I was lost in the familiar glow of the Night Owl's chat room, a digital haven for insomniacs and night shift workers. We were discussing the merits of pineapple on pizza, a surprisingly heated debate, when a new user joined. Their username was simply a string of numbers, for 783920. No profile picture, no introduction. Just there. Someone typed, "Welcome," for 783920. Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay? Silence. Then, nay. Simple, blunt. I shrugged it off. People online are weird. The conversation continued, but there was a subtle shift. For 783920's responses became unsettling. Not overtly threatening, but off. They seemed to know things they shouldn't. "Sarah, your dog's name is Buster, right?" For 783920 typed. A chill snaked down my spine. My dog's name was indeed Buster, but I'd never mentioned him in the chat. Sarah typed back, "Yeah, how did you know?" "I just know." The others in the chat started to notice. Unease rippled through the digital space. Someone joked, "Okay, creepy." For 783920 replied, "Not creepy. Observant." I glanced out the window. The rain had stopped. The streetlight across the road flickered, casting long, distorted shadows on my wall. I felt a prickle on the back of my neck, a sudden, irrational feeling of being watched. The conversation dwindled. For 783920's presence hung heavy in the silence. Then, another message popped up. "John, you live at 14 Elm Street, apartment 3B. John, visibly shaken, typed, "Who the hell are you?" A friend, for 783920 replied. I minimized the chat window. My heart hammered against my ribs. I lived at 16 Elm Street. Right next to John. I peeked through my blinds. Nothing. Just empty street, glistening with rainwater. But the feeling of unease intensified. It felt less like being watched and more like being surrounded. Back in the chat room, panic was escalating. People were demanding answers, threatening to report for 783920. Then, he typed, "Don't be scared. I'm just here to help." "Help with what?" someone asked. "With the loneliness," for 783920 replied. My breath hitched. I felt a strange pressure in my chest, a suffocating tightness. The air in my attic room felt suddenly thick, heavy, like something was pressing down on me. Then, for 783920 typed my name. "Your name, you like to sit by the attic window, don't you?" I jumped. My chair screeched against the wooden floor. I slammed my laptop shut, the glow of the screen vanishing, plunging me into near darkness. The only light came from the streetlight outside, painting stripes across my floor. Silence. Deafening silence. I strained my ears, listening for any sound, any indication that I wasn't alone. My heart pounded in my ears. A soft scratching sound came from the window. My blood ran cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the window, at the shifting shadows cast by the flickering streetlight. The scratching continued, slow, deliberate, like fingernails on glass. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The scratching stopped. I held my breath, waiting. Then, a whisper, so faint I almost didn't hear it, drifted through the closed window. "Your name. I know you're lonely." I scrambled back, away from the window, my heart a frantic bird trapped in my chest. I fumbled for my phone, my trembling fingers barely able to dial 911. The operator answered, her voice a distant comfort in the suffocating silence of my attic room. I stammered out my address, barely coherent, explaining about the chat room, the strange user, the scratching at my window. The operator assured me a patrol car was on its way. I clutched the phone, my knuckles white. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from downstairs. I froze. The operator's voice faded into the background as I listened, every nerve ending on high alert. Another bang. Closer this time. It sounded like someone was trying to break in. Your name, the operator's voice crackled through the phone. Are you still there? I couldn't speak. I just listened to the sounds getting closer, the heavy thud of footsteps ascending the stairs. Then, a voice, close to the attic door, a voice I recognized from the chat room, whispered, "Your name." "I'm here." The attic door creaked open. I screamed. The operator yelled my name, but I couldn't hear her over the pounding of my heart, the rushing of blood in my ears. The footsteps stopped just outside the attic door. Silence. Then, another whisper, closer now, right outside the door. "Don't be afraid. I'm your friend." The line went dead. And the attic door swung open, revealing nothing. Just darkness. I'm still sitting here, in the darkness, listening. Waiting. I don't know what's out there, but I know I'm not alone. And I know that 478-3920 is still out there, somewhere, watching. Waiting. Story 2. Story 2, The Static Whisperer. The hum of the old desktop fan fought a losing battle against the muggy July air. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I typed, the glow of the monitor illuminating my cramped dorm room. It was late, past midnight, and the rest of the floor was silent. I was lost in the familiar comfort of night owls, a quiet, mostly dead chat room I frequented. We were a motley crew of insomniacs, bound by shared nocturnal hours and a preference for anonymity. That night, the conversation was even more desultory than usual. Sarah, a nursing student, complained about her upcoming exams. Mark, ever the pessimist, droned on about the impending economic collapse. I chipped in with a sarcastic remark about the weather. Then, a new name appeared in the user list, Static Whisperer. No message followed. Just the name, hanging there in the chat window, an unsettling presence. "Welcome, Static Whisperer," Sarah typed. "Quiet night tonight, isn't it?" Still, no response. Just the unnerving silence, broken only by the whirring of the fan. It felt like a held breath. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a single line of text appeared, listening. A chill prickled my skin. The word was innocuous enough, yet it carried an unnerving weight. The lowercase lettering, the stark simplicity, it felt wrong. Mark, oblivious to the subtle shift in atmosphere, continued his diatribe about the stock market. Sarah, however, seemed to pick up on the strange vibe. Listening to what? She typed. Again, the agonizing silence. Then, another single word, everything. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. I glanced around my room, half expecting to see someone watching me from the shadows. The hum of the fan now seemed less comforting, more like a sinister whisper. Over the next few days, Static Whisperer became a regular fixture in the chat room. They never participated in the conversation directly, only offering cryptic, one-word responses that felt more like pronouncements than replies. Watching. Knowing. Waiting. My unease grew with each appearance. I found myself constantly checking the user list, dreading the moment their name would appear. I started experiencing vivid, unsettling dreams, dark figures lurking in the periphery, whispered voices I couldn't quite decipher. One night, I found myself alone in the chat room with Static Whisperer. My heart hammered in my chest as I typed a hesitant greeting. "Static Whisperer? Is that you?" The reply came instantly, "Here." "Are you real?" I typed, my fingers trembling. "Closer than you think." The word sent a wave of icy fear through me. I jumped at a sudden creak from outside my door, my breath catching in my throat. I strained my ears, listening intently. Silence. I swiveled back to my monitor. A new message from Static Whisperer, "Behind you." I whipped around, my heart leaping into my throat. The room was empty. Just the flickering shadows cast by the streetlight outside my window. I slammed my laptop shut, my hand shaking uncontrollably. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the building, every rustle of leaves outside my window, sounded like approaching footsteps. I felt a constant, unnerving presence, a sense of being watched, of being known. The next day, I tried to log back into Night Owls. The chat room was gone. Vanished without a trace. I tried contacting Sarah and Mark, but their accounts were deactivated. It was as if the entire online community had evaporated into thin air. Weeks turned into months. The fear gradually subsided, replaced by a gnawing sense of unease. I tried to rationalize it, to dismiss it as a prank, a collective hallucination. But deep down, a part of me knew that something was wrong, terribly wrong. One evening, months later, I was sitting at my desk, trying to focus on my studies. The fan whirred softly in the background. Suddenly, I heard a faint clicking sound, almost imperceptible. It seemed to be coming from inside my computer. I leaned closer, my heart pounding in my chest. The clicking grew louder, more insistent. Then, a voice, barely a whisper, emerged from the speakers. A distorted, digitized voice, yet undeniably familiar. "I told you," it whispered. "I'm closer than you think." I jumped back from the desk, knocking my chair over. The whispering stopped. The clicking ceased. The room was silent, save for the whirring of the fan. I stared at the computer, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Was it my imagination? A trick of the mind? Or was Static Whisperer still out there, lurking in the digital shadows, waiting? I haven't turned on that computer since. I don't dare to. The silence in my room is deafening now, filled with the unspoken dread of what might be listening. Waiting. Story 3. Story 3, The Whispering Walls. It started innocently enough. A rainy Tuesday night in November. The kind of night where the wind howled like a banshee against the drafty windows of my small apartment, and the rain hammered relentlessly against the glass. I was curled up on my worn couch, a mug of lukewarm tea forgotten on the coffee table, lost in the flickering glow of my laptop screen. The hum of the radiator was a constant, low drone in the background. I was browsing a vintage film forum, a comforting escape from the bleakness outside. Then, a notification popped up. A private message. From a user I didn't recognize. The username was just a jumble of letters and numbers, K7S9D2. Found you, it read. Simple, but unsettling. I frowned, assuming it was some kind of spam. I was about to close the message when another one appeared. Don't ignore me. A chill crawled up my spine. I glanced around my apartment. The shadows cast by the flickering streetlight outside seemed deeper, more menacing. I typed a reply, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Who is this? The reply was instant. Someone who knows you. My heart pounded. I knew no one with that username. I scanned my chat history, trying to find any previous interaction with this person, anything that might explain this. Nothing. What do you want? I typed, my hand shaking slightly. To talk. The conversation continued, each message more cryptic than the last. K7S9D2 spoke in riddles, referencing things from my past, things I hadn't shared online, things I barely remembered myself. A childhood nickname. A forgotten fear. The name of my first pet. Fear turned to a sickening dread. How could they know these things? I minimized the chat window, my breath catching in my throat. The hum of the radiator now seemed louder, more insistent, almost like a voice. I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, the unsettling feeling of being watched. I checked the forum's member list, searching for K7S9D2. The name wasn't there. I tried searching the entire internet. Nothing. You can't hide, another message popped up. My stomach lurched. I jumped as a loud bang echoed from the hallway outside my apartment. The old building was notorious for strange noises, but this was different, closer. I pressed my ear against the door, listening intently. Silence. Back at my laptop, a new message awaited me. I'm close. Panic clawed at my throat. I slammed the laptop shut, the sudden darkness of the room amplifying my fear. I scrambled to my feet, my heart hammering against my ribs. I needed to get out. Another bang, this time against my apartment door. I screamed, backing away. The banging continued, louder, more insistent. I could hear the wood splintering. Terror propelled me to the back of the apartment, to the small, dusty balcony overlooking the alley below. The rain was still coming down hard, the wind whipping it into a frenzy. I fumbled with the rusty latch, my fingers numb with cold and fear. As the door finally gave way with a deafening crash, I flung open the balcony door and stumbled out into the storm. The cold rain stung my face, and the wind tore at my clothes. I clung to the railing, my knuckles white, peering down into the dark alley. I saw nothing. I hesitantly stepped back inside, the remnants of the splintered door frame a stark reminder of the terror I had just experienced. The apartment was eerily silent. My laptop lay on the floor, screen blank. Then, a soft whisper, seemingly coming from the walls themselves, reached my ears. My name. Spoken in a voice I somehow knew, yet couldn't place. A voice that chilled me to the bone. I spun around, searching the shadows, my heart pounding in my chest. "Who's there?" I croaked, my voice trembling. The whisper came again, closer now. "We are here." I backed away, my gaze darting from corner to corner, searching for the source of the voice. The walls seemed to close in on me, the air thick with an unseen presence. Days have passed since that night. I haven't returned to my apartment. I'm staying at a friend's place, jumping at every creak and whisper. I've tried to erase that night from my memory, to convince myself it was a nightmare, a hallucination. But the whispers persist. Not in the walls around me, but in my mind. Whispers that echo the cryptic messages from K7S9D2. Whispers that remind me that I'm not alone. That someone, or something, knows my deepest fears, my darkest secrets. And they're still watching. I keep checking my messages, half expecting to see another notification from that jumbled username. I keep searching for any trace of K7S9D2 online, any clue that might explain who or what it is. But I find nothing. The silence is deafening. And terrifying. Because I know, deep down, that the whispers haven't stopped. They're just waiting for the right moment to return. Waiting to tell me what they truly want. And that thought, more than anything, is what keeps me awake at night, staring into the darkness, listening, waiting.